Hello, everyone. Welcome to SudoWrite 101. Once again, this is one of my favorite classes to teach because it's so exciting working with the AI, especially for all of those who are brand new to the software or have been using it for just a short period of time. I'm author Elizabeth Ann West. I've been digitally publishing since 2011. I have over 25 books across the various bookstores out there, and I like techie things. So I'm someone who's always been on kind of the forefront of a lot of different things in digital publishing, from selling direct in 2015 to building a membership website. So when AI came along, I was an early adopter of that. I've been using SudoWrite since November of 2021. And I have 3 books that are published in the stores that I use the AI to assist with. One of my favorite things about it is I have a mentor of mine who is a New York Times bestseller, and he checked out my book, A Testifier, and read the first chapter, and he was like, oh my goodness, the description of molasses, honey cloying in my throat, and tobacco, like, you really had me there. Your writing's improved. And I was like, that was the robot. Because descriptions are one of my Achilles heels. How many of you know exactly what your pinch point is when you're writing? Sometimes you might be a fast writer and you leave the descriptions out. Sometimes you're a slow writer and you're always searching for that perfect word. Sometimes you don't like to outline. You don't want to think the plot points, or maybe you're a pantser. We're here today for everybody's pinch point. So if you know what your pinch point is, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll try to mention where SudoWrite can help you with that. And without further ado, I will share my screen with SudoWrite. This was a project I was working on last night. But when you first sign into SudoWrite, you land on this page right here, which is your home project page. I'm going to put you guys all at the top, so I look up the top here. And this is, the cool thing about it is this is the sorbet theme. I like the rainbow theme. But if you don't like pink and peach, you can always click your gear in the top right here. And this is going to control a lot of your aesthetic settings. You can join our community, which is our Slack group, which I highly recommend you join, because that's where we have a lot of great information and extra help 24 hours a day, pretty much, from other members of the SudoWrite community. You also can do the tour again, which walks you through some of our most popular features. Up here, you can change your font. Perhaps you want to be in a different font. I like Merriweather. I'm going to go ahead and increase my text size today, just so that you guys all can see it very well. And I prefer the extra spacing because it helps me with when I'm editing and copying and pasting. And finally, you can do different themes. So we do have charcoal, which is a dark theme for accessibility, if you would like that. I also like Aurora Borealis, which is blue, but we're going to work in sorbet today. And finally, there's also an affiliates program if you want to sign up, because you can share that with other authors and everything like that and get a little bit of a thank you for doing so. Any questions about changing your settings? And I'll make sure the chat's open here. Okay. So the other thing is, on the right-hand side in the information panel over here, you'll have cards such as coming to a SudoWrite 101 class, which is where you are. You can keep taking the 101 class. I do kind of teach the same things over and over again, but you always can find something new, and you always can ask a question if you have something that's a problem for you that came up that week or anything. I also am starting office hours, which is for advanced users or just users who don't need a 101 class, and we try to do that between 2 and 3 times a week. Those times will be posted in the Slack group, and we'll work on getting it on a card on the right-hand side too. Okay, so each card is actually a project. You'll notice I have a couple of untitles here. If I don't want a project anymore, like I happen to know that one's empty, I can just click delete. It will ask you if you for sure want to delete this project, because there is no undo, and you'd click OK. I think they're working on like an archive so that you can hide some of this clutter if you don't want to have to see everything. You can see I've been using it for a very long time, and I use a lot of different genres. But if I want a new project, I'm just going to click this button that says new. And that's going to take us to the main writing interface. You'll notice this looks very similar to a lot of text editors, right? Like, we're used to bold and italicizing and underline. Everybody's comfortable with those kinds of features when you're writing in a text box? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. I like to focus on what's familiar before we go into the strange and unusual. So the easiest way to get started with SudoWrite is to write. A lot of the features require, some words in there. So let's go ahead and start with, I like the idea that we had in the chat a little bit about a psychologist who has slight psychic powers, and she's doing those autopsies, the psychological autopsies. Does that sound like a fun prompt for everyone?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So let's say I want to brainstorm some character names. the first thing I can do over here is I just click on the brainstorm, and we're going to click on characters. And I'm going to say, give me a list of female psychologist names. If I could spell it right. Who are slightly psychic. She can talk to ghosts and has to write reports about their deaths. And I'm not going to give it examples because we're going to see what it comes up with. And we just click start. And what Brainstorm will do is it will come up with a bunch of different names. Penelope Parchment. I'm going to say no on that one. Does everybody like Isabella Pierce?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to thumb it up. I kind of like Dr. Temperance Finch as well. I'm going to say Eliza Grant is eh. Any other names that we like here? We do have a Julia in the house, so we should probably pick one of the Julia names. How about, do we like Juliana Esterbrook or Juliet Jackson? I think
Jackson.
Jackson, okay. And I'll pick one more. I'll do with a Gracelyn because my daughter's a Caitlin. Okay, and let's pretend I was done. Ooh, I like Portia Livingston too, because that's funny, the Livingston, and she talks to dead people. We've got jokes this morning. I'm going to go ahead and click save and exit. And you'll notice that the cards that I picked are right here on the right-hand side with female psychologist names who are slightly psychic. So you could brainstorm all kinds of things in there, and the cards will be on the right-hand side for you to pull into your document. That can be helpful for if you're trying to generate a bunch of brainstorms and maybe you're not going to use it till later on. For example, I might pick one of these names as my main character, but I could use another one of these names for a colleague that she hates. You know, it gives you a bunch of names that you can play with. Let's work with Dr. Portia Livingston. Now, I could start writing it in here, but I'm going to really push Sudowrite to help me, especially because I kind of came to this unprepared. I wasn't preparing to write a psychologist who can talk to dead people this morning, but we're going to do it. So you can click this Generate a First Draft button. And this is very much akin to, how many of you have played with ChatGPT or OpenAI Playground or any of the other AIs that are out there? Anyone?
Not yet.
A little bit? Yeah.
No.
So this is similar to those other chat boxes in that you're going to prompt it. I teach prompting very simply as do, what, how. And what that means is start with a verb, then define what it is that you want it to do. And then the how is that secret sauce. That's where you add all the adjectives and all the descriptions and all the instructions you would give a junior writer. And I'll go ahead and put that in the chat so that you guys have that. Do, what, how is what I said. So we're going to say write a chapter 1 or I'm going to make it a psychological thriller. I'm trying to pull in a lot of different elements here where Dr. Portia Livingston, you don't need to write this down. I'm going to copy and paste it into the chat for you so you can grab it. Is it a forensic psychologist, I guess?
That works.
Responsible for drafting psychological autopsies or reports of a dead person's, what do you say? There's a lot of psychology in this. Psychological profile?
Mental status, emotional.
Oh, there we go. Dead person's mental status at the time of a suicide. Dr. Livingston also can talk to ghosts. Okay, so we're going to write chapter 1 for a psychological thriller, where Dr. Portia Livingston is a forensic psychologist responsible for drafting psychological autopsies or reports of a dead person's mental status at the time of a suicide. Dr. Livingston also can talk to ghosts. Okay, I'm just going to copy and paste that into the chat here so you all have it. And we're going to click go and see what it does. Now, I didn't give it a lot of information. I've given the junior writer a lot of leeway to just go, crazy with this. I didn't tell it what time period it is. I haven't told it what city we're in. I haven't told it anything about Dr. Portia Livingston. Her medical bag clutched tightly in one hand. Oh, she's being called to the scene of a suicide. That's very strange. But, it's fiction. And maybe that's what they do have in our story world, that she gets to come to the crime scene to help build a psychological profile instead of having to just look at photos. She found a tattered notebook. How many of you have played with First Draft and seen First Draft do these kinds of things?
Yeah,
I have not used it
a lot.
Yeah, it can be a little frightening. We are at 650 words and it's still going. If it's ever going off the rails and you don't like it, you can press the escape key. All right, let's take a look at what some of it says. The evening was winding down. The sun had set and the gloom of a city twilight had settled in, cloaking the streets in shadows and hinting at the secrets that lurked beneath. Dr. Portia Livingston was unusually tense as she maneuvered her way through the busy streets of downtown, her medical bag clutched tightly in one hand. She had been called to the scene of a suicide, a young woman in her 20s, according to the dispatcher. It had been a long day, and Dr. Livingston was feeling the stress. She had been a forensic psychologist for over a decade, and while she was used to dealing with the darkest parts of life, she still felt the ache of sorrow each time she had to examine a body. As she neared the crime scene, the atmosphere in the air shifted. The streetlights were dim, and the usual hustle and bustle of people had been replaced by a tense, hushed silence. Dr. Livingston could feel it in her bones. Something was wrong. She quickened her pace as she arrived at the address, and her heart sank as she saw the spot where the young woman had taken her own life. The body was gone, but the evidence of what had happened remained. The ground was littered with broken glass, and blood stained the pavement. Dr. Livingston stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she examined the scene. She had seen much in her career, but this was something different. It was almost as if the air around her was charged with something otherworldly, something that sent a chill up her spine. But she pushed the feeling aside, focusing her attention on the task at hand. So, okay, I'm going to pause real fast. We have a lot of telling. Would you agree? It's not bad. It's just a lot of telling. So I would start changing this immediately. I liked the gloom of the city twilight had settled in, cloaking the streets in shadows. I'm just going to start off with that. I don't think we needed that earlier part. What do you all think? With the sun was setting and all that, I think the gloom of a city twilight. I think people immediately know what time of day it is. Dr. Portia Livingston was unusually tense as she maneuvered her way through the busy streets of downtown, her medical bag clutched tightly in one hand. She had been called as she neared. Okay, so this is great. So I'm going to right here. I want her to talk to somebody. Would you agree? So right here between where she's arrived and we find out that the body is gone, I think a junior police officer should greet her. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So I could click right, but then that gives it pseudo right the ability to decide what happens there. So we'll do two different tools and I'll show how they work. With the autocomplete, I can click right settings, and this will allow me to put in some key details. So let's use that Finch last name for Detective Finch. I think that works. And you can choose the creativity slider here is actually not how creative the answer is. It's how creative the AI is allowed to deviate from your prompting. Your prompting can include the words that are already in there. The right feature will go from wherever your cursor is, and it will read up in your document 1,000 words to take it into context for what it's going to try to suggest could come next. It doesn't read down. That's an important, some different tools do different things. So right reads up. I'm going to bring my creativity slider down because I want it to stick to the story that I'm trying to write. If I didn't know what I wanted to have happen next, I would bump it up to the most, and it can bring in aliens and unicorns and dinosaurs. Oh my. But I really want it to kind of stick to what's already there. So I'm going to bring that creativity down. The number of cards, I choose 2 for the most part, but that's because I prompt, like I've been prompting and I've been using it for over a year. I would say 2 is a good place to start, just so that you can get the hang of how to prompt the AI, how to work with the junior writer. You are the senior writer, and I will tell you right now, one of the traps of writing with AI is you can get fascinated with trying to get the AI to write as many words as you can. You need to remember that you're the senior writer, you're the better writer, you're the faster writer, and it's easier to work with AI if you actually do more of the heavy lifting and just use that junior writing partner when you need that help. Length of cards. I could go from 50 words to 250 words. I changed this based on what I'm looking for. Since we're looking for just a dialogue with a junior partner, a junior detective, I'm probably going to click 150 words. Does it make sense to everyone that if we're asking her to talk to a junior detective, that doesn't need to be 250 words? Does that make sense? That would be too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to put Dr. Livingston.
Unless there's a romantic interest between the two.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Meets Detective Finch at the crime scene.
I noticed that this is speaking in the third person. Are you able to tell it whether or not you want it to be first or third person?
Absolutely. Well, I'll show that in just 1 second. Let me make a note and we can make some changes.
Okay.
Okay. Personally, first person point of view makes my skin crawl, but for you, I will do it.
Actually, I always write in third person. I was just wondering.
No, we'll do it. That's an important feature that Pseudo-Write can do. All right. So I'm just going to put a key detail in here. Now, key details, they should be broad things for the story scene as a whole. You don't necessarily want to use it for specifics, because if you get too specific with it, like if I was to put in here and they talk about this and they talk about that, Pseudo-Write will kind of like try to incorporate that every time we press write. So you can use this to kind of gently steer. We have a better tool for if you have specific things that you want to have happen, and I'll show that in just a second with guided write. What do we want Dr. Livingston to be like? Is she sassy? Is she reserved? Maybe she's reserved since she talks to dead people. She doesn't like to talk to the living too much. I don't know. What are we thinking for her characterization?
I think she would probably be reserved.
Yeah.
But I was also wondering if we could have it describe what she looked like a lot, because if she's been doing this 10 years and they say young woman and she's a psychologist and the amount of time it takes her to finish school, I'm wondering a little bit more of what she looks like.
Okay. Did you want to describe her or you want us to describe her?
Let's have AI describe her. Let's see what it does.
Let's do that. Let's grab.
Because it says she's in her 20s.
Did it say it was in her? No, I don't think it said she was.
Oh, no.
The victim is.
Oh, the victim is. Okay.
So it had been a long day and Dr. Livingston was feeling the stress. She had been a forensic psychologist for over a decade. All right. So I'm going to highlight this whole passage here, which is 51 words, and I'm going to click describe. Now, before I click describe, I want to tell you that the describe feature, you can press this little drop down and you can choose sight, smell, taste, sound, touch, metaphor. So if we were really doing this as a writer, I probably don't need to know what Dr. Livingston tastes like or what she touches like, but I'm going to do all of them just so you can see what it can do. So I'm going to click describe, and people are tempted to turn that metaphor off because they're like, oh, it's useless. I find I get most inspired sometimes by what the metaphor comes up with. All right. So it started to read down a little bit. The city smelled like, let's see here. The asphalt radiated the heat of a tropical sun trapped beneath the city. Okay, so now I feel like we're in Miami. The acrid smell of burnt
Mexico.
flesh. So it kind of described the situation a little bit. I kind of highlighted a little too much. So let's just try. She had been a forensic psychologist. We're just going to highlight that part and click describe and see what it does. Because I really want a description of her. There we go. She was tired, the dark shadows under her eyes accentuated by the streetlights as they flickered, and her dark hair was pulled back in a bun that lit wisps. Okay, I like that part. Her dark hair was pulled back in a bun.
Yep.
Yep, that's a good piece right there. We'll grab that. I'm going to put that before we say that she had been a first. I think that's a new thought. Her dark hair was pulled back in a bun that let wisps fall freely around her face. And then this is a new paragraph. Boop. And we don't have the she had been because that's two paragraphs that started that. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to say a forensic psychologist for over a decade. while she was used to dealing with the darkest parts of life, she still felt the ache of sorrow each time she had to examine a body. That's interesting. The damnedest part about it is, she said to no one in particular, is I can't even remember how to say no. Okay. There we go. Now I think this would actually work for like the dead body, maybe a little bit, with leaves tangled in her brown locks. I don't think we need that. She wore a heavy winter coat, so now it's cold. I don't know if we want to make it cold or not. And it did sight and touch. I don't know why it didn't do the other ones. It should have done the other ones. Why is it not doing the other ones? That's interesting. Metaphor. She had been a forensic psychologist for over a decade, and while that was already there. Used to the darkness. She had been for well over a decade. It started in her teenage years. Her father had left her and her mother when she was but a child, and it just seemed to spiral from there. The only thing that held her together was the darkness, the knowledge that life was fleeting and that death was inescapable. So she chased after it and let it drag her about like a sail on a ship caught in a storm. I don't know that I can use that in the scene, but I like it. So what I'm going to do, this is an advanced tip, create a scraps document. So I do this called scraps, and we'll call this chapter 1. How many of you are working on this story, you would like this information about her backstory possibly influencing you devising a backstory for Dr. Livingston? Anyone?
I would, and I would actually maybe later on in the book might even use it as to maybe in a conversation as how she got into it or a background.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could definitely see you turning that into a line of dialogue of somebody who is her friend or something, telling her she's forgetting to live, she's chasing after death because, and she lets it drag her around. I mean, that's a really cool image there. These are the kinds of wordsmithing things that I get excited about working with the AI. It just makes it a joy for me to work with the junior writing partner.
So when you say scraps, is this going to be another box or card when you first go in? It'll be saved somewhere?
I make it as a document. So this left-hand side is a document. So I can call this pseudowrite.101. And this is the psychologist story. So I know. So you can have as many documents here as you want. Let's do an outline. Well, we'll do that in just a second because I needed to show the right bit. So we kind of got derailed a little bit. We'll call this the outline, and we'll come back and do this later, just so I remember. Okay, so coming back to chapter 1, we managed to get one line of the bun was sprawling freely around her face. And I would do more description if I wanted to, if I needed more information. But I really want her to meet that police officer, right? So I have my key details here. Is in her early 40s. We'll put her there. So she's been doing this 10 years. So she was in school most of her 20s. She became a professional in her 30s, and now she's in her early 40s. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if I put the cursor here, it's going to read up everything that we have up to that point. Oh, yep. And we remove there. Okay. So this is where we are in the middle. I'm just going to click this right button, and it's going to go. And it's going to take those key details into consideration. There we go. At the crime scene, Dr. Livingston was met by Detective Finch, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a no-nonsense look in his eye. He introduced himself briefly before leading the doctor to the body. The room was silent and the victim lay still, her eyes closed and her face peaceful. Now, obviously, it didn't read down below where it learned that the body's gone. Knelt beside the body. It does appear to be a suicide, she said. I can't be sure until I have the autopsy report. My initial assessment is that the woman took her own life. Dr. Finch nodded, his expression grimmed. He thanked. So I could change that to more dialogue and everything like that. Was waiting for her, introduced himself. They began the investigation. So that's one tool, which is the right tool. And these aren't bad words. Each card here, let's see here. This is doing my word counter plus. That's 156 words. So not too shabby for a button click. Let me show you a better tool. That is the guided write. So since we know what we want to have happen, guided write will read above and it will read below. So this is a really handy tool for if you have a specific story beat, maybe from your outline that you want to have happen, or just you've decided since you've been reading, you want to have something happen. So when I put my cursor here after I've selected guided, I can click that button. I can turn on suggestions and it'll actually give me ideas of what could happen next. Sometimes pseudo-write likes to think a little bit too broad. It doesn't think always like a very small story beat. But here it's actually doing a pretty good job. She carefully examines the body to look for signs of what happened. She speaks with witnesses to the event to gain more information. She uses her expertise to try to understand the psychological motivations for the suicide. These two are actually great, and I might even copy and paste them somewhere or write them down because you kind of, I accidentally clicked it, but that's okay. So we'll click guided here. We're actually going to tell it what we want to have happen. Dr. by Detective Finch. He is described, and he hands her a cup of coffee because they've worked many cases together. He says this one is bad. Okay? And I'm going to click go. We'll look at those other cards that I accidentally. This was the she speaks with witnesses to the event to gain more information. This is one of those things that I could find information in here to give me ideas that we're not really sure if this was a suicide or if this was a homicide. I realize we deviated a little bit from writing autopsy reports of suicides, but it's a fictional story. Yes, Boomer, what's your question? You're muted, so I can't hear you.
What a silly man I am. Are these cards going to be available for later? Are they, when you save and exit, are the information on the cards still going to be available?
Yeah, they're always there in your history. So watch.
Okay.
I can completely leave pseudo-write entirely. Boop, it's gone. And open up. And share my screen again. And come back to pseudo-write. And here we are, pseudo-write 101 psychologist. That's where I was working in. So I click open and everything is still right there.
I was just wondering, I had to do another scraps thing, for any of that information in here. So.
The reason I do a scraps file is because as you're working with this, are you going to remember which card had the thing that you liked?
No.
So one other tactic that you can use is you can use what's called the favoriting tactic, where if I liked this card specifically, I would click the star. And now up here in the top right, when I click a star, it's going to show me the cards there.
Perfect.
But I use the scraps file. This is like a workflow thing, because as I'm doing like more chapters, chapter 2. So when I write chapter 2 here, and we'll say back at the office, so I know what I'm doing there. She's got to do her report and then have the ghost of the woman show up. You'll notice that when I'm in chapter 2, there's no cards because the cards are attached to the document you ran them in. So I'd have to go back to chapter 1 to find it. So by making this universal scraps file, and I usually will say here, good stuff for backstory. I usually will use a keyword there for me to remind myself of what I want, because as I fill this up, if I need to find something for backstory, then I can just do a control find and find backstory. See? This is one of those advanced tips because I've been using it for over a year and a half. Let me tell you how I keep my AI stuff organized.
That's good. That's good to know. That's really good. That stuff's available to you anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yep. And then the other cool thing is, like, after I've used something, strike through it. So I know that I've already incorporated that detail into the book. So I don't accidentally 2 weeks apart, write that backstory bit back in there.
Exactly.
That's really good. How do you tell chapter 2 to continue what you've been doing in chapter 1 without writing everything again?
It's not easy to do that. That's one of the limitations of the AI, because it can't keep narrative logic. So you have to do that. So the best way to do that would be, you would figure out what you want in that scene in chapter 2. And I would do like a generation thing, and I would kind of, oopsies. suicide victims.
You could put that in a scraps file and keep using it under
Yes,
every
you
chapter.
can.
you know?
Absolutely. Actually, what I
Yeah.
usually do for that is not a scraps file. I do a prompts file. So I have a
Okay.
prompts file and I have a scraps file. That way I keep it separated of what I use and what I do with what I'm doing with it. But that's absolutely true. I forgot to make a prompts file. Who writes the death report of suicide victims? She just witnessed the crime scene of the mayor's daughter, who seemingly threw herself out a window. So there's questions of if it was a homicide. The ghost of the mayor's daughter, Chloe, starts talking to her as she writes the report at the office. And I'm going to copy and paste that. You'll notice, so who's doing the heavy lifting for the story narrative?
We are.
The senior writer. Yeah, the junior writer can't do it yet. And quite frankly, I don't think we really want them to yet, because then we're replaced.
Correct.
So typical day, she was used to dealing with tragedy. And so some of it I can't use because it's going to like summarize what I put in the prompt. Now that's cool. It was not a suicide, it was murder. So I don't think the ghost should be able to talk in complete sentences. That's probably a little bit too much, that's a little Deus Ex Machina there. It's too much of a help. But there you go. So it's got the office and we've got 520 words that I could start playing with. So the junior writer is just that. It's just going to give you some ideas and give you a starting off point. I know I'm a faster writer and a better writer when I have 400 to 500 words to get started with and play around with. But not all authors are that way. Some authors prefer to write it out and then just use what I call the laser tools to modify their AI writing.
So let's say we're already writing a book and we import or we cut and paste our a chapter, and then we ask it to rewrite parts of it. How much can we import and then highlight and ask it to rewrite?
So there's a couple of ways to do that. You can import as much as you want. One of my manuscripts in here is 35,000 words in one document because it's a work in progress. You can do as many. I've been using Sudowrite for so long, I predate the project. So this project whole interface here is only a couple months old. It used to be every single card was an individual document. So we would just keep everything and we'd use hashtags and things to note scenes. So just be happy you've got these documents now on the left side.
Right, it's continually evolving.
Yes, it is continually evolving. And there's a new tool coming very soon for outlining that I've been helping to develop and test, and I'm really excited about. So just hold on to your bonnets. So one way you could do it is rewrite. So for example, let's talk about that first person. Let's return to that. So right here, I'm going to highlight, I've got 99 words that I've highlighted here. And you can click this rewrite button. Rewrite can handle up to 250 words right now. But I'm also going to show you a trick that you can actually use first draft to rewrite a larger section. And you can use it. We have a couple of presets like shorter, more descriptive, show not tell, more inner conflict, more intense. But we'll do customize. And I can say rewrite to be in first person point of view of Dr. Livingston. You could actually write the whole scene from the ghost. Yes, question, Boomer.
No, that wasn't me.
Okay, you just have the
That was automatic.
Okay, so I'm going to click go and I'll copy and paste this prompt in here. This is a rewrite. And I will click go.
I think I have a ghost in my system.
Chloe is here with us.
Yes.
So now you'll see it just changed everything to first person point of view. As I worked, I felt I was being watched. I heard a faint whisper that seemed to come from the corner of the room, but when I turned to look, there was no one there. Dismissing it as my imagination, I continued with my work. I was almost finished writing the report when the whisper returned, this time louder and clearer. I'm here, it said. I felt a chill run up my spine. I slowly looked up, and there in my office stood a ghostly figure in the same clothing Chloe was wearing when she was found. Well, that was spooktacular.
Except she's talked to ghosts before. So this sounds like this is the first time she's talked to a ghost.
Right.
All right.
So we would probably just change that line of instead of dismissing it as her imagination, I would be like, I was hoping not again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not again. So these are the things that you would have to kind of drive and everything. And the reason why it had that limitation is, remember, chapter 1's prompt, I told it in the draft, she can talk to ghosts. I didn't tell it that in the thing here. I just said the ghost of the mayor's daughter starts talking to her. I didn't say like she can talk to ghosts and now the ghost is going to talk to her. You see what I mean? I didn't give it context. So it didn't carry that context from the previous chapter.
Well, couldn't you take that copy and paste to every chapter and just add whatever you want to have it happen that scene in the bottom of it, and that way it would have all the context every time?
You can.
Okay.
That is one of the strategies there. But when you do that, it will always kind of summarize a little bit. So it's just a nuanced thing of how you want to handle it. Every author's different. Not all authors are plotters. Some are more pantsers, and they're just going to write and then kind of discover the story as they go along. So let's write an outline. Who wants to write an outline?
I do, but right before we move forward, you said you had a trick to put more.
Oh, that's right. I apologize.
That's
So
okay.
let's say this whole section here, because it's 521 words. I'm going to copy this. This is kind of avant-garde. I just kind of figured, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but we're going to try. We're going to generate. So now I'm giving it that command. Remember the do, what, how?
Mhm.
Do, rewrite, what? To be in first person point of view of Dr. Livingston, and what's the how? And this is not the first time she's talked to a ghost. And now I'm going to paste in all 500 of those words. Now you'll get a warning that it'll say, this might be more than it can handle. It's okay. It's fine. Just ignore that. Now, obviously, if you go too many, this goes back to more of like advanced topics in AI and understanding how much the algorithms can do these days. Right now, the AI algorithms that are out there, even ChatGPT, can handle a prompt that's up to about 2,700 words. That's the rough estimate. So it can read up about 2,700 words. Some of the newer models coming out, and I think ChatGPT has this ability now, can do as many as 5,000 to 6,000 words that it can actually process and take into consideration. Now that includes whatever you prompt it. Sudowrite is more, because we do a lot of wrapping on it with fiction and stuff, prompting and things that you can't even see. You really want to aim for that 500 to 1,500 words max in your prompt here. But I'm going to say rewrite to be in first person. The whole thing is probably about 600 words maybe, so it's fine. But so I gave it a command, and now it'll rewrite it. So this is one of the ways that you don't have to be stuck to the rewrite being only 250 words and going 250 words, 250 words, 250 words. You can use first draft to go faster. And it's thinking. And it turned it into 264 words. Is it the best? No, I think we lost a lot of information from the original one, but I could retitle this Chapter 2, first person point of view rewrite, so I know what it is. And then to move this around, you just can put it under chapter 2. So you know that it goes right there.
All right.
So the original first draft gave me 520 words. This one gave me 264. So sometimes your results aren't always the best. And I can literally run the prompt again, though, because I want to do this to demonstrate. AI is always predictive. So just because you got one result one time doesn't mean that's going to be the exact same result you get a second time with the exact same prompt. And I'll click go. So the first one gave us 264 words. The other thing I might do if I don't get my expected results, I would reword my prompt. And I would add in things like rewrite this to first person point of view, add in extra details, and make it exciting for a reader to read. You can give it those kinds of basic information here. Well, this is already sounding a lot better. Oh, it decided it's in her house now. It completely changed it from her office. And is now having her investigate the body. And this is because I gave it to rewrite that. It doesn't know that chapter 1 already exists. Does that make sense to everyone? So these bigger tools that can do larger pieces of writing, you can, if you use them too much, they can have a lot of overlap. And it all just comes down to the prompting. And this is one of the limitations of AI. It can't keep the narrative logic. It doesn't know that chapter 1 already happened unless you tell it specifically. So I would have to change
this.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying this one did 433.
Yep. So that's why I say it's
the difference.
I'm sorry?
And what was the difference again?
None. I made no difference to the prompt. It was just the roll of the dice. Every time you prompt the AI, it has kind of the ability to decide exactly how long it wants to be, roughly, with first draft. These other tools that we have where you use cards, you're able to control it with your right settings.
Is there a way to, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, is there a way to like that it could brainstorm scene disasters, like endings?
Yes, a
Would
little
that
bit
be
more.
like the outline part
I'm
of
sorry?
it? Will that be in the outline part of it?
Yeah, we can do an outline. But you specifically want scene disasters?
Yeah, if you were just wanting to brainstorm some scene disasters with the tool.
Can you help me a little bit on scene disasters? What do you mean by that specifically?
So like this one on just how it would end.
Okay. So the way to do that, or the way I would do that, is I'm going to come back to our original draft here with the first prompt that we had, which was write chapter 1. And we're gonna tweak this in a new document because I find it's easier to play with my prompts where I can read them a little bit better in bigger font and then copy and paste them into another thing. So we'll call this Untitled 2 prompts. All right, so we're not going to write a chapter 1 now. We're going to say, write a narrative outline for a psychological thriller novel. I'll fix outline. Where Dr. Portia Livingston is a forensic psychologist responsible for conducting psychological autopsies or reports of a dead person's mental status at the time of a suicide. Dr. Livingston can also conduct disclose.
Spelled outline wrong.
Oh, still. Not investigate. We'll say
So
threatening. Go ahead.
So does Finch not believe it's a homicide, or does he not believe it was a suicide?
That he doesn't believe it was a homicide.
Okay.
So, in other words, she's going to say, I mean, Dr. Finch doesn't believe it was a homicide, or rather, isn't willing to risk his career over it. How about that?
Okay.
Ironclad proof. But the same people who killed Chloe are threatening Dr. Livingston. False leads.
Can you add in here conflict and resolution, or do you
It'll
have
do
to?
that automatically,
Okay.
but we can put it in there. And tension. How's that?
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to put this in here. Now, there is a chance that when I put this into first draft, it's going to try to just write the story. That happens. First draft was originally designed to write words. We kind of like hack it to make it do outlines. The good news is a better outlining tool is around the corner. So don't panic. That will just do outlines. It won't try to write the story. So I'm going to click and add new, because in order to get to first draft, you need to have a brand new document. And I'm going to paste that in. So we have all that information in there. I copied it into the chat, and we're going to click go. And let's see what it does. Now this can take a few minutes. I mean, we're kind of asking it to process a lot of information. This is where you go warm up your cup of coffee that's gone cold. Okay. So it is kind of summarizing the story. Chloe had been murdered by an egomaniac heir. Okay. So it wrote kind of a narrative outline here. And it's not terrible, but I think that there's now a gunshot wound.
From a parent suicide. Well, that could happen.
It could happen. It could happen. Let's try it again. This time I'm going to change the prompt a little bit. So with this prompt that we have here, I'm going to come down a little bit, and we're going to go take 2 prompt. And I'm going to say, write how many chapters do we want? How about a 15 chapter, 20 chapter outline? Or a psychological thriller number. Okay, so we'll just put that in there and see what happens. And this was a narrative outline. Oh dear. And then I'll come back to this outline that we were going to do earlier and put that in there. And I'll put this in the chat as well so you guys have it. And go. So now, because I gave it parameters of how many chapters it is, it's going to start to try to think about the story and making it stretch over those 20 chapters. People always ask what formats does it know and everything like that. It kind of knows basic formats like 3-act structure, 4-act structure. It knows Save the Cat. And you can ask it to do that. So the Ghost Road. Found dead in her apartment. It was ruled a suicide. Okay, so how's this, Colette? Do you like this style of outline a little bit better?
I love it so much better.
Was it you who was asking about scene disasters, or was that another person?
No, that was someone else.
Oh, that's me. Shanna.
Oh, Shanna, I'm sorry. It didn't light you up when you talked, so I couldn't.
Oh, it's okay. Because it's like when you go to guided, it has like suggestions and for what could happen next. And I was just wondering if it had like suggestions for scene endings. This outline works too, though.
Yeah, you also could just ask it for it. So the way that you would do that, and I'll show you. We'll go back to chapter 1.
Yeah, just like how could this, end on a dramatic note or something? Like
Wow, we are still going. We're at 1,000 words, ladies and gentlemen. And it is at chapter
Yeah, how
15.
to end with a cliffhanger so you can do another book.
I hate cliffhangers.
Yeah, but they sell the next book.
They really do, but oh God.
All right, I got a little bit of a hang up here at 1,200 words, and that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come out into another document and come back into the outline.
Okay. Oh, some technical things. How did you take that outline and just save it over here? So you just did this outline, it got stuck, but you just had, I don't know, maybe 16 chapters or whatever.
Yeah,
How-
it still does. So it's right here. So
Okay.
it's already there, and we are at 1,200 words, and it got stuck. So to make it stop running, I just went to another document and then went back into it, and that's what makes the card show up on the right-hand side.
Okay, so when you come out of this, you don't have to hit save or anything. It's just now in the outline.
It's just in that document. Yeah, I titled the document outline earlier.
Right.
So I can come down here and see if it wrote more, because sometimes it did. See, so what happened is it just got hung up. So it got to 16 and the animation kind of crashed a little. And that happens because we're asking it to do a really heavy lift. But I can just copy and paste this information into there. And now I have a full 20 chapter outline that's 1,400 words.
So you asked it to give you 20 chapters. Could you ask it to give you 20 chapters, 3 acts, so many conflicts and crisis, and it would do that?
You could in the prompt. You may have to run it a few times to test it out. And I will be honest with you, if you're learning how to prompt for the first time, run it through ChatGPT, run it through OpenAI Playground. Get handy with doing those prompts, then bring it into Sudowrite and feed it into First Draft, because if it works in those, it'll work in First Draft and Sudowrite, but it'll be better because Sudowrite's designed to write fiction.
So you just said a lot of stuff. I have no idea what you said.
Okay.
So go back. You said go into another AI system.
If you want to, ChatGPT is available for free right now to people, just so that you can get the hang. And I'll just show it real fast, because it's we actually partner with OpenAI. So if you're in ChatGPT, which is openai.com/blog/ChatGPT, this is a thing that's been everywhere. It's what made everybody's grandma now know how to write with AI.
Right.
And I'll just click try. You do have to have, and right now there's a really high demand. You do have to log in, and I'm on a paid account with them. But if you're on the free account, you only have access when they can. So I'm in the plus account. But if I copy and paste that exact same prompt into here, oh, nope, I don't want that. I want this one.
Is your account linked? That's how you were able to bring it up so fast?
No, it's not linked. I just typed it in.
Oh, okay.
I just visited a lot, so my autofill knew. So I'm going to do that same prompt that we ran into First Draft, and I'm going to type it in and press it. And you'll see that ChatGPT will start running it. But you see, this says, doesn't believe it was a homicide and warns Dr. Livingston to be careful. Our Sudowrite version said that for political reasons, he wasn't going to do it. You can see, like, this is giving me 1 line per chapter. Do you see how this is kind of anemic in comparison?
Yeah.
But it's a good place to test your prompts and make sure it starts to give you what you want. Then take that prompt to Sudowrite, and you're going to get a much richer experience.
Got you.
And it's a good way to test. So, and you could take a look and see if it's not going to be the same outline. Like, you're not going to get the same information here that you have over here. So here it has Chloe. died in a suicide. It doesn't even say that she's in the apartment or anything. This is very cliche. Let's take a look at what Pseudo-Write did. Or here, I'll just read the first bits here. Chapter 1, Introduction to Dr. Portia Livingston, her profession. She's called to write the psychological autopsy for Chloe, the mayor's daughter, who died in an apparent suicide. That's what it says for Chapter 1 there. Chapter 1 over here says, The Ghost Road. Dr. Portia Livingston was a forensic psychologist responsible for drafting psychological autopsies or reports of a dead person's mental status at the time of death. They just got that from my prompt. But Portia had one special talent that set her apart from other psychologists. She could talk to ghosts. I didn't put it in that context. The AI did. I just said she could talk to ghosts. It was a talent that she had kept hidden from colleagues and clients, even though it had been with her since she was a child. Again, that's a much richer detail than what ChatGPT had. Would you all agree?
Elizabeth, what was the other place that you say OpenAI Playground?
Yes. So ChatGPT and OpenAI Playground are the same company. So if you have an account with one, you have an account with the other.
It's called
ChatGPT is the newer one. The Playground is the older one, which is version 3. But it's challenging to use it. I would say test your prompts in ChatGPT, and once you know that your prompt is solid, that the AI hold on, my screen's going a little bit haywire. That you have designed a prompt that you know the AI understands. It may not give you fantastic results, but it's at least like if I was to put this in here, I go, okay, this is going to work because it gave me 20 chapters. It understood what I was asking for. I basically have verified that my prompt is really strong, and I can bring it over to Pseudo-Write and I can run it as an outline. And you don't have to do that. You can just use Pseudo-Write without using ChatGPT. I'm just sharing this as a tip because I know sometimes people are sensitive about their word counts and how many words are generating. This outline I generated here, it was 1,400 words. So if you're on the $29 a month plan right now, that's 90,000 words. I want to run and get 1,500 words once. I don't want to necessarily get 2 or 3 outlines that don't work because I'm still learning how to write with AI. Does that make sense?
So what does $10 a month get?
The $10 a month one that's a good question. And forgive me that I don't know off the top of my head.
It's monthly paid and 20,000.
20,000.
It gets you, if you go to monthly, it's $19 a month and it gets you 30,000 words.
But the one that was telling, okay.
If you go yearly, you can save money, but you're paying for the whole year up front. So $10 a month. So it's $120 for the whole year because it's yearly. So you want to select it to monthly if you want to go month to month. There's disadvantages and advantages to both, but I will say even if you are at the yearly and you start here at the hobby student at $10 a month and say you use it a month or whatever and you decide, I actually need to go up, you can contact customer support and we can either upgrade you or we can transition you to the monthly if that's what you need to do or however your account needs to change. We're really here.
You do have to contact. You can't just upgrade or downgrade.
No, you can, but so obviously if you were at the yearly and you paid for the yearly, you can upgrade to the yearly. It would be more complicated to switch to a monthly account at a different plan level from a yearly. Does that make more sense? Yeah, that one you can't automatically do. You contact somebody. But if you are just upgrading in between, you can. So
it's a lot to learn.
You know what though? Once you start doing it, it's so fun.
It is. I mean, I played with the example. I played with the sample and I went over the word, the words aloud immediately, but
yeah, me too. I mean, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to play with it. I mean,
right. It's very addictive.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now, if you are a user that got into Pseudo-Write and you immediately used up the words, you are in the right place because that means that you know how to use Pseudo-Write. Like you're somebody who is naturally curious and inquisitive and you're going to be able to master this. And in that case, ChatGPT can be a good friend to you in terms of just learning some techniques with working with AI. And I am here. I am in the Slack all the time. If you have a question, there's people there for you. You just click that little button to join the community and it takes you right to the Slack.
Well, I actually joined Slack and I put the question in, could you insert like half a novel, and you've already said you put 35,000 words in it, and it told me that Pseudowrite wasn't built for that.
So
Whoever answered me contrary to what you just said.
that's because I remember because Steph answered that, and it was Steph's a good friend. At the time, import didn't exist yet. So import's the new thing that literally came out last week, right here.
Okay. Because I think I wrote it Friday.
I know. So it's like it's one of those things that it's very everything is new, and I tell everyone we're on an expedition together and we're explorers. This is a brand new field for writing and creative processing. And people are having to learn all new skills of like, you're more of like a conductor of an orchestra or a creative director than some of us have experienced writing in the past, I think.
Well, when
So
you learn a
I'm
new
gonna-
stuff, it's good for brain plasticity. It's good for your brain to learn something new.
Mm-hmm. All right. So at risk of not breaking anyone's brain, we've gone over a lot of features here, and I want to kind of wrap up. But
Is there any way
okay.
you could, the scene, is it just you put it in first draft if you want to generate like different scene ideas, or is that the outline too?
First draft could do everything. So if I want to go add new, it's basically like it's an open-ended prompting box. You could literally, you can see here all the different examples of what you could do. So you could even do like a character.
Okay. So it's not just included in the brainstorm area.
No, brainstorm area is one way, but first draft is another way. You wanted to brainstorm. What did you want to brainstorm? Exciting scene endings.
Oh yeah, but if I just have to type it in there, that's fine.
Yeah, you could
to brainstorming.
Type it there, or you could type it here.
Oh, and then it would just keep writing.
Yeah, there's a thing here because we have this whole scene here. So a lot of times it'll try to wrap it up. She couldn't be determined, but she was determined to find out. You could literally highlight this and just click rewrite, customize, rewrite to be more of a cliffhanger.
Got it.
Leading into the next scene.
Thanks.
You can literally just give it instructions like you would a junior writer. That's how I think of it. Think of it that way. I'm always right there.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question about translation capabilities or writing in another language.
So one that might help you is, let's say I wanted to do a different word here. She had felt this sensation before. I don't want sensation. I can just highlight one word and it'll give me some different synonyms. And you can click 35 more and you have like a whole word cloud that you can choose from.
Wow.
So that can be.
Did you say you were going to give me a tip about screenwriting?
I hadn't forgotten. I was going to do that next. Okay. So let's do the screenwriting one. And I think that it's important to have some dialogue for that. We need some dialogue. How do I do this? Okay, we had it here. I just hadn't put it in. So we'll put this. It's good to see you. I know this isn't the greatest, but we'll just put this in here. And I right click and I paste and match style so that it actually pastes it correctly, because sometimes the pasting can be a little bit wonky. And I'm gonna make my text size a little bit smaller so you guys are able to see this whole chunk here a little bit better. So right here, I have 360 words, which is kind of big for rewrite. So I'm gonna, it can do up to 300 words. So I will do to the first dialogue here. And this is going to be a rewrite function again. So I've highlighted 202 words. This is going to be painful for all you fiction writers out there. I apologize in advance. I'm going to click rewrite. I'm going to do a custom. And I'm going to say rewrite to convert to a screenplay. And I will copy and paste that into the chat here. And click go.
I'm excited to see this. I'm also a screenplay writer.
It's just painful. It's painful to watch it take 200 words and take it down.
Oh my gosh, I need that though.
It's not perfect.
Oh, I know, but it's something to work with for sure.
It is definitely something to work with. So now
That money is just flying out of my pocket.
You can see it took it down, and word counter plus it did 136. And you could probably run this twice if you really needed to. The other way to do it, if you wanted to have, remember our other trick, if we want a larger selection, let's say I want all the way to this, she found the small tattered, we'll go this much. We'll go 650 words. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to do a new document so I can get into first draft. Because once you know a prompt works, you can just use it. Rewrite to convert to a screenplay is the word. And then I'm going to copy and paste all of that prose in.
Now, can I ask you a stupid question?
Yeah.
Now, these words here, the words in the description there, they don't count against us.
What you're putting in the box, it doesn't, but what it generates would count against you.
Okay, so it's only what it generates.
It's only what it generates. But you can see how if you are not careful with the first draft box, you can zoom through those words.
So on that first draft box, you actually tell AI, I want you to do this, colon, and then copy the stuff, and that's how it reads it, gets the command. Okay.
Yep. The command is the do, what, how. Do, rewrite. What? This into a screenplay. Oh, this is a lot better.
So where do we buy a stack for this again?
I'm sorry?
Where do we buy a stack for this again?
We're not quite there yet. I don't think. I think they've only done one round.
We're the guinea pig, so take us into your consideration.
Well, I'm looking forward to use the show don't tell, or yeah.
You can use that too. You can also highlight if you have two characters in a description there, and you can say add more dialogue, and it'll do it. So there's a lot of different options here. But I think this actually worked a little bit better in terms of turning it into a screenplay that would be able to be copied and pasted into Final Draft, I think is the software you all use.
Yeah, that's what I use.
Yeah. So you tell me, Boomer, is this a better format? It shortened a lot.
I mean, I can use it.
Yeah.
That's something that's usable.
So that's where it's going to help you there.
Okay.
And the other thing I teach authors too, like I say, this is a new skill. I think some people start off at the lower end. I have some friends who have they started there, but now they're already at the highest plan because they're realizing with 300,000 words a month, that's forcing them to practice because practice makes perfect. They tease me that I'm kind of like this prompter that I can always prompt and I have to explain to them I've been working with it for a year and a half. So I think like the robot even more so. And the better you get at it, the more you're going to be prepared for what's coming down the pipeline. I have been able to see some of the newer algorithms that are coming. They write better than I do. And they write in a way that I wouldn't even necessarily need to edit it before I published it. It is that good. Can it keep narrative logic? Nope. That's my job. So learning the skills of being a creative director and organizing this it can be scary, but at the same time, how many of you have more story ideas than you have time to write?
I do. I have like 7 works in progress. That's why I want to try this.
The other thing I would say too is that I've been a commercial publisher since 2011. And there's a lot of projects that I would have loved to write, but I had to make the calculation as a publisher about what was the audience reach on that, or how much marketing is it going to take me to push that book out there. But let's say I want to write a thriller, but I don't have a thriller following or anything like that. Then I'm like, oh man, I got to make an Instagram. I've got to make book talks. I've got to build a whole website for that pen name. Now with AI, I can just write all of the projects and I don't necessarily have to worry as much about what is the return on the investment of my time because the time has been brought down.
Right.
Because it's a lower barrier of entry for me to enter into these creative projects. I have the freedom as a publisher, as a creator, as an author to write into these projects that may or may not be profitable on the individual level, but they're still important pieces of art and creation and reaching a niche readership or whatever that needs more books. So you get to do a better balancing act, I think, of that.
Well, yeah, I have like 6 or 7 screenplays on the shelf that I haven't looked at for years. But having this ability, I could go back and maybe take them in a different direction and freshen them up some. Yeah.
You can use
So-
artificial. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm just, I'm not a techie, and that's my weakness. If I was still typewriters, I'd probably be typing. So what you have here, you hit add new and you put it in first draft, and then you gave the prompts, and then you asked it to do a screenplay, and it did it. And then it's going to come back over here where you're going to have it.
Yeah, it'll just put it right into that document for you.
So the 35,000 words that you have in, you hit add new and you put it into a first draft for it to keep it.
No, it can't do 35,000 words. That's way too many.
So how did you get the 35,000 words inside at one time? How did you like cut and paste 6 chapters?
Oh, if you want to do that, so it's just an import button right here. So you can copy and paste. So like if I go to, forgive me here, I've got to go to Google Drive. So if I want to go to A Test of Fire, for example, this is an older book. This is one that's already published. I have an epilogue I didn't use apparently. Probably should give that to my readers. Let me grab the newer document here. So this tools word count, this is 53,000 words right here.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to file, and I need to download it as a docx. Now I'm going to come over to Sudowrite. I'm going to click new project. I'm going to call it A Test of Fire, so I know what it is. I'm going to click this import button. And when I click import and I go to my desktop, there's the docx, and I click open. It will bring all 53,000 words into one document.
So
I didn't see that on your desktop.
I'm sorry?
I couldn't see your desktop.
Oh, that's because I'm just sharing the screen. I basically just pulled up the list of the files.
So you can import Word. It has to be docx.
It has to be docx. So, but here it is. And now it'll show me in the top right here that this project has 53,000 words. And that doesn't change my word count. So there's 180,000 there. I'll go ahead and import it again.
Oh, because the AI is not generating this. You're generating this, so it doesn't go against our word count.
Exactly. I'm just importing this so I can start playing with it.
Ha. So, you know what? I've seen a couple of your previous videos.
Mm-hmm.
This one was more informative than all the other ones I've seen. So this is a better class.
It depends on who's in the audience. You guys have asked a lot of great questions.
Yeah.
You can see on my word count, I still have 180,000. It didn't change it.
Wow. Yeah.
That's so very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Now we can just highlight passages to rewrite.
Absolutely. I could go into this.
I got it.
Yep. And this is actually right here where I did it. I did the assembly rooms at Meriton. I just highlighted this and I clicked describe, and that's how I got this. The air inside became thick and cloying, a mixture of honeyed wine and butterscotch from the ground floor, warred with the scents of wax candles and tobacco smoke from the upstairs card tables. I added the upstairs card tables because Sudowrite didn't know that they would be playing cards upstairs.
Got you.
That is so cool.
So here we have, it has some information, polished mahogany and cane furniture, few empty seats here and there for new arrivals who need, or for those who needed to cool off. That's a great detail for a ball in 1812.
Wow.
The mint green walls and gilded mirrors obscure the fact that there are only 2 windows in the entire room. Oh gosh, I'm already suffocating. One on the first floor and one on the third. Well, that's going to be bad since there's about to be a fire that breaks out.
Wow.
So you can definitely, I'm going to be right here that there was sweet aromas and perfumes. There's also a lot of body odor in 1812.
Oh,
wow.
Muted conversations and laughter float on the air, occasionally broken by a clink of a glass or burst of song. The musicians have their work cut out for them just to give the dancers a chance to breathe. And let's see the metaphor. It had its own post box. The hum of machinery and a series of signs which, like a Calvin glacier, rasped against the square. I don't
Oh,
even know
wow.
what to do with that one. But here we go. One break in the gray light revealed a bit of the mysterious gray spire, a gleaming vertical knife edge of stone running up from a dark and oily river that sliced through the trees like a trail of smoke from a burning log. As we came closer, gray stone chimney of some great building. We could hear the wind and the leaves and the river calling to itself. We caught the scent of something clean and refreshing, the smell of grass and damp leaves. The taste of water was electrically bright and tingly on our tongues. I could have used that, some of that, to inspire like their carriage coming up. And as she got into the carriage, she'd be able to see the chimney going and the information. So that those
Because
words
that
there
goes
to
with
me.
you being the senior writer.
Yes, I get inspired a lot by this and going, okay,
Right.
listen, junior writer from the writer's room. I like where you're going, but you're a little bit running amok. So let me retool this and see if I can use it.
Right. That's what I was doing when I was playing with it.
Mm-hmm.
So now all of this is saved over in the title, and you can go back and forth with it.
Yes, you can. You also could always, if I wanted to organize it a little bit better, let's say because I'm working with it, I can highlight, because I have chapter 1, I could highlight that and do a new document and paste it in and call that chapter 1, because I might only want to work with chapter 1
Right.
at a time.
Maybe that's
And then,
wonky. Right.
because that way I can have what I call like a master, and then I can go back and put it in.
How do you export this?
Oh, that's a good question. So let's say I was done with chapter 1, or let's say I had just finished this whole thing. I had made all these changes. I had played with it. I'd done a bunch of things. You just click the 3 dots. Why is it not exporting? Oh, wait, maybe there's supposed to be an export button here. Oh, okay, so that's a bug. I need to write that down. Hold on a minute here.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, but it didn't do it on the document. I brought it in. Okay.
Oh,
So what you would need to do is we'll fix this, but hypothetically it should have been right there at the numbers, and it's not there because it thinks that this is an import. So what I would actually have to do, hold tight. It's not going to stay this way, I promise. So I pasted it in, and now it's an untitled 2. Now I have the ability to export. So this is a brand new tool, and they just didn't catch this. So if it's a document that you create in Sudowrite, it'll have the export feature right there.
but it won't export something you've imported.
It won't export something you've imported,
Okay.
but I'll get that fixed, because I'll
that
explain to
makes
them, hey guys, they might want to make changes.
Right.
So that's just a paper cut. So we'll get that fixed.
That's not a problem.
And that's the other
Man,
thing.
you are a great teacher. Just want you to know, Elizabeth, I have learned so much in this hour. I never would have thought I would have learned this much.
Okay, Boomer, I've still got to be able to leave the room. We don't want my head too big.
All right.
The last little thing I will share is the question mark here. If you have any ideas, you can click here to suggest a feature, and you can also vote on features. We're always working on new things. Or if you report a bug, if you see something like I just discovered.
Where did you pull that up at?
This is the question mark right up here in the top
Oh,
right.
okay.
Yeah. The video I will say, might be available for replay. I'm working on editing things for YouTube and stuff like that. But like,
Well, you went over features in this video that you didn't go over in other videos I've seen.
I get better each time I do it. It depends on what questions people ask and what they're asking for and what level. We had a lot of people here today that that had experience working with Sudowrite. Sometimes I get a class where everybody's brand new and they don't have questions. So you guys were great. If any of you want to come to the 10 o'clock tonight, I would really appreciate it. It would be helpful.
Oh, really?
Yes, you can come. You can
I
come.
might be back on here just to
Me too. I have to get some more coffee though.
Same.
Oh, that was my next question. They have all of this software out now that can tell if something was written by AI.
Nope.
You shake your head, nope.
It's busted. It don't work.
Okay.
So you can't really get friction anyway to tell if it's AI. I've put my fiction in that is from 2014. It's never touched an AI, and it's like, oh, this is AI written. And then I put the AI stuff in, and it's like, can't determine if it's written by a human or AI. Or sometimes it'll say 100% human, and I'm like, okay, you're just guessing.
Okay, got you.
It's a coin flip, people. So it's really sad.
Well, our professor that was on from North Carolina, the professors are the ones who are using that program, trying to catch their people from using AI.
I think that plagiarism checks and checks for AI might make sense for nonfiction work because it's more structured and it's also more indexed, but fiction is not indexed. And on top of that, for example, in my genre, there's a lot of sentences that say Mr. Darcy exited his carriage. So you have a lot of phrases and stuff that are going to be common. I can probably tell you that there's probably millions of books out there that say he sighed in relief, and it has that line. But a plagiarism checker or whatever is going to say, you're 35% the same of this book or something like that. And it makes somebody panic, and it's unnecessary because it's not accurate. Can you get Sudowrite to give you trademark stories? Yes. If I tell First Draft to write me a story about Spider-Man, it's going to give me a story about Spider-Man. Does that mean I can use a story about Spider-Man and publish it? No, it doesn't. It's not original. And it's because I prompted it something that was not original. Does that make sense?
I see.
So it's like Uncle Ben says, with great power comes great responsibility. So,
Elizabeth, for those of us who are looking to improve the number of projects we're completing, not just works in progress, what have you found people are able to do now that they're using the AI? Are people able to put a book out every 2 months? And I know this is subjective, but is there a common denominator that's coming up for people using this or switching to this?
That's a good question. I think it is very personal. I come from a world where there's a lot of people who are making a living with writing. I'm one of them. Before I joined Sudowrite, writing was my full-time gig, and it has been since 2014. I've been fortunate enough that my writing and my publishing skills and things have afforded me to do that. I know that that's not the case for every indie author that's out there, but there is that opportunity. And a lot of it does come down to how fast can you publish. So 1 year prior to AI ever existing, well, that's not true because I used dictation. So Dragon is actually one of the earliest predictive algorithms that existed for AI writing. You just were dictating and it was predicting what you were saying in addition to listening for the context. Mm-hmm. I wrote 8 books in 1 year, and I made more than $50,000 that year with my writing.
Wow.
So there's as far as what AI can do for a writer, I would say that there is there's a learning curve. There's a couple of months where it feels like you're writing slower because you're literally learning new skills. You're learning that you can't put the pronoun in there. You'll notice that when I was doing key details, I was saying Dr. Livingston, Dr. Livingston, Dr. Livingston, because I've already learned I can't say she because it doesn't know which she I'm talking about. These are like little things that you learn the more and more you work with artificial intelligence. As far as speeding you up, I think that it really comes down to how fast do you read? Because you can click that generate button as many times as you want to, but then you have to read the words and you have to kind of put it together like a patchwork quilt. Right. So I think you only kind of get limited by how many words can you validate and process in an hour. Okay. And so, I mean, that can be as many as 2,000 to 4,000 words in an hour, I think, for many authors. And it also feels effortless. It doesn't feel as draining as if you were writing those 4,000 words yourself. You get done with those 4,000 words. And as far as fatigue and stuff goes, you kind of feel like you only did about 1,000 to 2,000. So it can allow you to have those 4,000, those 8,000 word days in just 2 or 3 hours of work. And then you can go about your day or your life or whatever. And you have done in one day what previously before AI, I think people were struggling to complete in a week.